A disabled Israel Defense Forces combat veteran is fighting for his life at the hospital after setting himself on fire ahead of Israel's Memorial Day. Yitzhak Sa'idian self-immolated inside the offices of the Defense Ministry's Rehabilitation Center, dousing himself with a bottle of flammable liquid and setting himself on fire. He's in critical condition with 100% burns over his body. Sa'idian is diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder for his participation in the country's 2014 Gaza war known as Operation Protective Edge. He was a combat soldier with the elite Golani Brigade, took part in some of the heaviest firefights of the war, including a battle inside Gaza City where 13 soldiers were killed within a few hours. With us now is Dr. Danny Brom, the General Director of Nativ, the Israeli Psychotrauma Center. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us. Prime Minister Netanyahu last night spoke with the head of the Veterans Association. The Prime Minister said he's committed, quote, to making thorough reforms in the way we deal with disabled IDF veterans. So Netanyahu is promising reform. What would you suggest to him? Where's a good place to start? What needs to change?
A lot needs to change. I mean, it's a very tragic thing. The Ministry of Defense is limited by the laws that basically regulate what they are, what they can and what they cannot do for the veterans. And it's clear that we need a thorough change of how we relate to our veterans. And that starts with the whole question of who is suffering from the whole range of post-traumatic phenomena, and not only who is at the end of the spectrum of having or not being able to sleep and not being able to talk and not being able to express themselves, and basically living in the hell they saw in their lives in 2014 or in other wars. So what needs to change is that we are developing a range of services for veterans so that there will be recognition and that they don't have to fight to be recognized as suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder.
Sir, one thing that stood out to me, obviously in the reporting of this, in all of the Hebrew media since this horrible act, they were speaking with a lot of friends and family members, and a lot of friends said that Sa'idian often complained and expressed that instead of compassion or respect or sympathy, authorities expressed to him only impatience and cynicism and skepticism. They were rushing him along in meetings. They were not giving him adequate time to explain his situation. He got the feeling that he was being viewed as a con man trying to get more money rather than someone who truly needed help. Is that a common feeling?
That happens, and that happens way too much. I cannot say in what percentages, but we see that here in the trauma center in Jerusalem, that people have to bring in a lawyer in order to get their rights, which is of course horrific because these people have put their lives, in the battle for Israel, and then when they suffer so much, very often the question is asked, well, is it really true? Didn't you have some trauma in childhood, which is, of course, a risk factor, but has nothing to do with the actual situation. So there is a sort of a bit of a paranoid thinking about, do they want to come and steal our money? Until now in Israel, only about 6,000 people were ever recognized as suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder on a high level. That is, if it wouldn't be so terrible, it would be a joke. There are hundreds and thousands of Israelis who have fought in the wars, and they just do not come up. And in the beginning, that was maybe forgivable. We were really fighting for the existence of the state of Israel. But we know now for many years that post-traumatic stress disorder, it can be really disabling. And what you need, first of all, is recognition that you went through something, that it really changed your brain, that now you are different, and that it needs a lot of work to change that back.
Sir, like many,
the work can be done.
I want to ask about that work. Like many other veterans with severe PTSD, Saeed Dian told family and friends he couldn't sleep, he was having trouble eating, he was consumed by images from the battles. It led him to have emotional fits and fits of rage. Can treatment help that? Can psychotraumatic or psychologists, can they work with that?
Yes, it is possible to work with that. It's not easy work. The so-called evidence-based treatments, they help about 1/3 of people to come out of PTSD. But then there are other newer treatments. And also the question of, do they really come up for treatment? Because many times they just think this is what there is, there's nothing to do. That's why we have a program called Peace of Mind that take whole units after they're out of the army in order to have them process their experiences. And that works well. Then those who now recognize what the issue is, they go into treatment. So you have to think in a broad continuum way of services.
Yeah.
And for example, at this moment, there is what we call MDMA-assisted psychotherapy. That is a new form of therapy that there's a new study that comes out in Nature Medicine that shows that about 68% of people going into that treatment, at the end of their treatment, do not suffer anymore from post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay.
So we have to develop this continuum of treatment, and that is possible. But it needs the ministry to take on a much more active and encompassing and compassionate way of looking at veterans.